Chapter 1. Introduction. This chapter discusses the introduction and explains the core philosophy of the book, what it is fundamentally trying to convey. It lays the foundation for the entire book. Here, it is explained that wealth or success is not merely about money. It begins with a way of thinking. The focus of this chapter is on the idea that the direction of a person's life is shaped by their thoughts, not solely by their circumstances. The chapter clearly states that most people do work hard in life, but without any clear direction. They remain busy, yet they do not truly know what they want. As a result, their efforts remain scattered, and so do their results. This chapter emphasizes that every achievement begins with a clear idea and a clear desire. An important concept introduced here is that human thinking is not just imagination. Thought is a real force. When a person genuinely desires something and consistently thinks in that direction, their activities, decisions, and habits begin to align with that thinking. This process is what creates results. Major achievements do not appear suddenly. They are first formed in the mind and then slowly manifest in the external world. A common misconception is that success comes only from luck or background. This chapter challenges that belief. It explains that many people who started from zero had neither money, recognition, nor special education. What they had was clarity about what they wanted and the habit of staying committed to it. While conditions may not always be under our control, control over our thinking is always possible. Another important point highlighted in this chapter is that most people give up too quickly when they hear the word impossible. When something does not produce immediate results or is not easily understood, people assume it is not meant for them. This chapter explains that this mindset itself is the biggest obstacle. Many times, people are very close to success but stop instead of persisting just a little longer. In real life, this idea is very simple to understand. A person between the ages of 25 and 35 may be working at a job but feels internally confused about what to do next in life. They work every day but without a clear vision. This chapter tries to explain that the first step is to decide what one truly wants from life, not a perfect plan, but a clear direction. When the direction becomes clear, small decisions begin to fall into place automatically. It is also explained that this book does not talk about magic tricks or shortcuts. There is no instant formula here. Instead, it teaches that when thinking becomes disciplined, an ordinary person can produce extraordinary results. However, patience is essential. This is a process that requires repeatedly reviewing and correcting one's thinking. In conclusion, this chapter calmly states that a person is the captain of their own life. Their thinking determines the direction they will move in. Real change begins when a person starts clarifying their thoughts. That is why this book begins with thinking, because without the right mindset, no plan or effort can work effectively in the long run. This is the most important lesson of this chapter. Chapter 2. Desire, the starting point of all achievement. This chapter explores where every major achievement truly begins. It clearly states that the first and essential step towards success is desire, a deep and clearly defined longing. The chapter focuses on the idea that merely wishing for something is not the same as having desire. Most people want many things in life, but their wanting is weak. They think, I wish this would happen, or I wish I had more money, or I wish life were better. However, this chapter explains that such thinking does not qualify as desire. True desire is formed when a person becomes fully committed from within to achieving something. It explains that desire becomes powerful only when it is clear, when a person knows exactly what they want, how much they want, and why they want it. When desire is vague, action becomes weak. But when desire is clear, a person naturally begins to think and act in that direction. This chapter also explains that desire is not a sudden feeling, it develops gradually. When a person repeatedly thinks about their goal, feels it emotionally, and mentally prepares themselves for it, desire transforms into a powerful force. This force keeps a person moving forward despite difficulties. The chapter makes it clear that desire without action is incomplete. Simply wanting something doesn't change anything unless action is taken. Desire and action are deeply connected. Strong desire pushes a person to take action, and action further strengthens desire. A common misconception is that people believe things must become easy first, and only then will desire work. This chapter explains that the opposite is usually true. Desire comes first, and then paths begin to form. When a person truly wants something, they start recognizing opportunities, developing new ideas, and finding solutions. It is also explained that desire works only when a person takes full responsibility. If someone believes that their situation, life, or future depends on others or circumstances, their desire becomes weak. But when a person accepts complete responsibility for their outcomes, desire gains strength. In real life, this chapter applies in very practical ways. For example, if a person is unhappy with their job but continues doing the same work for years, weak desire will only lead to complaints. But when desire becomes strong, the person starts learning new skills, exploring new directions, and taking small but meaningful steps forward. The chapter also emphasizes the importance of writing down one's desire and revisiting it repeatedly. When a person expresses their desire clearly in words, the mind begins working in alignment with it. This is not magic, it is the natural way the brain creates focus. Another misunderstanding addressed here is that desire is only about money. The chapter clarifies that desire can be for anything: better career opportunities, stronger relationships, peace of mind, or personal growth. The difference lies in how deep and sincere the desire is. In conclusion, this chapter calmly explains that desire is the seed from which every achievement grows. Without desire, no plan works, no skill develops, and no dream becomes reality. But when desire becomes clear and strong, a person begins to change internally, and that change gradually transforms the direction of their entire life. Chapter 3: Faith, the role of imagination and belief in achieving desire. This chapter explains how imagination and inner belief work together to turn a desire into reality, and how this process functions internally. The chapter focuses on the idea that wanting something alone is not enough. Creating a clear mental image of the goal and believing that it is achievable are both essential. Imagination does not mean daydreaming. It means mentally experiencing the desired outcome as if it already exists. When the mind repeatedly visualizes the same image, it gradually transforms into belief. An important point clarified here is that faith is not blind belief. It is a feeling of calm certainty. When a person truly believes that their desire is possible, their behavior, decisions, and efforts naturally align with that belief. The mind subconsciously begins searching for paths that lead toward the goal. This chapter also explains that imagination and belief are interconnected. If imagination is weak, belief becomes unstable. If belief is weak, imagination remains only a passing thought. When both work together, the mind fully accepts the desire. This acceptance activates inner strength. A common misconception is that simply thinking positively will make everything happen automatically. This chapter clarifies that imagination and belief do not replace effort. They replace doubt with clarity. When doubt decreases, a person stops stepping back repeatedly and begins to recognize even small opportunities. In real life, this principle is easy to observe. If a person wants to succeed but internally believes they are incapable, they will stop halfway. However, if the same person can visualize themselves succeeding and believe that they can gradually reach that position, both their thinking and actions begin to change. This chapter also explains that belief cannot be forced. It is built through daily thoughts, words, and emotions. When a person constantly focuses on their limitations, belief weakens. When they consistently hold a clear image of their desire, belief gradually strengthens. In conclusion, this chapter offers a calm understanding that achieving desire is not magic. It is an organized mental process in which imagination provides direction and belief provides the courage to move forward. When the mind and thoughts remain focused on the same goal, paths begin to clear naturally, and the goal slowly takes the form of reality. Chapter 4. Autosuggestion. This chapter explores how the human subconscious mind works and how we can influence it through our own thoughts. The focus is on the idea that whatever thoughts repeatedly enter the mind gradually settle deep within it and eventually begin to control our decisions, habits, and actions. Autosuggestion means repeatedly exposing oneself to a particular idea. It is neither magic nor something that happens instantly. It is a slow and gradual process. Whatever a person repeatedly tells themselves, the mind begins to accept as truth. The subconscious mind does not evaluate logic. It only responds to repetition. Thoughts that are repeated daily in the same manner gradually take root in the subconscious. This chapter clearly explains that the subconscious mind does not learn directly from the external world, but from our conscious thoughts. What we think, what we feel, and what we say to ourselves is the message that reaches the subconscious. If a person continuously tells themselves that they are weak, unlucky, or incapable of success, that belief slowly becomes part of their identity. An important clarification made here is that autosuggestion is not simply about repeating positive statements. The real impact occurs when emotion is attached to thought. When a person does not merely say something, but genuinely feels it, the subconscious mind accepts it more deeply. Words alone have limited effect, but when combined with emotion, their influence increases significantly. This chapter also explains that most people unknowingly practice negative autosuggestion. Statements such as, "I don't have time," "I can't do this," "I am always late," or "I am bad with money" are all forms of autosuggestion, directed in a negative way. The mind does not distinguish between positive or negative messages. It accepts them as truth and begins behaving accordingly. A common misunderstanding is also addressed here. Many people believe that simply thinking positively will change everything. However, autosuggestion does not work in isolation. It functions as a support system that gives direction to thinking, which gradually influences actions. When internal thinking changes, external behavior becomes easier to change. In real life, its application is very simple. For example, if a person is confused and fearful about their career, and they remind themselves daily that they can learn, improve over time, and grow through mistakes, their decision-making process begins to change. Instead of avoiding opportunities, they start making efforts. This chapter also highlights that morning and night are the most effective times for autosuggestion. During these moments, the mind is relaxed and the subconscious is more receptive. Thoughts planted at this time take hold more quickly, which is why repeating the same positive ideas daily is emphasized. It is also explained that autosuggestion is not a shortcut. Results appear gradually, but they are long-lasting. Just as drops of water can leave a mark on stone over time, repeated constructive thoughts create new mental patterns. These patterns eventually turn into habits. In conclusion, this chapter calmly explains that while a person cannot control the external world, they can learn to control their thoughts. When thinking changes, it turns into action, and action ultimately changes results. Autosuggestion is the starting point of this entire chain. Thoughts placed in the right direction gradually lead a person toward that same direction. This is the true essence of the chapter. Chapter 5. Specialized Knowledge, Personal Experience and Observation. This chapter explores the nature of knowledge that does not come directly from books, colleges, or formal courses, but is developed through personal experience and continuous observation. The chapter emphasizes that every individual possesses a unique form of knowledge because each person's life experiences, circumstances, and lessons are different. Specialized knowledge refers to knowledge that is personal and cannot be easily copied. It develops gradually over time when a person is deeply involved in a particular activity and repeatedly engages with it. It also explains that while formal education and degrees are important, they are largely the same for everyone, which can cause their value to decrease over time. In contrast, knowledge gained through real-world experience, such as working in a field for years, understanding people closely, and learning from mistakes, becomes unique. This uniqueness is what sets a person apart. The chapter further explains that specialized knowledge cannot be forced or created through shortcuts. It does not come from rigid plans. It develops naturally when a person has genuine interest in their work. When someone enjoys what they are doing, learning happens effortlessly. Over time, small observations accumulate and transform into deep knowledge. This idea is especially important in today's highly competitive world where many people hold similar degrees and skill sets. Those who rely only on textbooks become part of the crowd. However, individuals who learn from experience and observe their work closely gradually create a distinct position for themselves. A common misconception is also clarified here. Many people believe that specialized knowledge means learning highly technical or complex subjects. This is not true. Specialized knowledge can exist in any field: cooking, business, content creation, communication, understanding systems, or solving problems effectively. What matters is that the knowledge is rooted in personal experience. Another mistaken belief is that one must first learn everything before starting work. This chapter suggests that real learning often begins only after work starts. Through action, mistakes, and feedback, true understanding develops. Reading or observing alone does not provide the same depth. In real life, the concept is easy to understand. Consider a person who has been running a small business for years. They understand customer behavior, supply challenges, and pricing strategies, knowledge that may not be found in books but gives them a strong advantage. This becomes their real strength. The chapter gradually reinforces the idea that personal experience should never be underestimated. The problems faced daily and the situations observed repeatedly are the greatest teachers. When a person observes carefully and learns consciously, these observations evolve into specialized knowledge. In conclusion, the chapter offers a calm insight that every individual possesses something unique. The key is to recognize it, invest time in it, and strengthen it gradually. Knowledge gained through experience is durable, deep, and valuable over the long term. Chapter 6: Imagination, the Workshop of the Mind. This chapter explains that the human mind is not merely a place for thinking, but a workshop where every major idea is first created before becoming reality. It helps the reader view imagination not as fantasy, but as a practical tool that can change the direction of life when used correctly. The chapter explains that imagination is of two types: creative imagination and synthetic imagination. Synthetic imagination involves combining existing ideas, knowledge, and experiences in new ways. Most people use imagination in this form, such as applying old solutions to new situations at work. Creative imagination, on the other hand, is where entirely new ideas are born, ideas that a person has never encountered before. It is clearly stated that every successful person first visualizes outcomes in their mind before creating them in the external world. Every business, project, or major transformation begins in imagination. If there is no clear image in the mind, nothing clear can be created in reality. A common misconception is also addressed here. Many believe imagination is only for artists or creative professionals. This chapter explains that imagination is essential for anyone who wants to improve their life, whether they are confused about their career, dissatisfied with their job, or looking to start something new.
For example, a person who performs the same job daily and feels that life is merely moving forward without growth will see no change if they continue thinking the same way. But when they begin visualizing themselves learning new skills, stepping into a new role, or living a better life, action begins. Here, imagination acts as a trigger. The chapter also explains the strong connection between imagination and desire. When a person truly wants something, the mind automatically starts searching for paths. This is why people who are serious about their goals suddenly begin to notice new ideas, connections, and opportunities that they previously ignored. Another misconception addressed is that ideas appear automatically. This chapter clarifies that imagination can be trained. As a person reads, learns, communicates with others, and keeps an open mind, their imagination grows stronger. New ideas do not emerge from an empty mind, but from an active one. In real life, the application is simple. If someone feels stuck in their career, the first step is to clearly visualize where they want to see themselves in the future. If someone wants to start a business, they must first imagine how it works, the value it creates, and the impact it will have. Without this clarity, action often turns into confusion. The chapter also teaches that imagination and action are not separate. Imagination without action is incomplete, and action without imagination lacks direction. When both work together, results follow. Especially between the ages of 25 and 35, when individuals are shaping their identity, imagination empowers them to think beyond limitations. The chapter concludes with a calm yet profound insight. A person becomes what they repeatedly visualize in their mind. If the mind is filled with fear, lack, and limitation, life reflects the same. But when the mind holds images of growth, clarity, and possibility, life gradually moves in that direction. Imagination is not a world of dreams. It is the first step towards creating reality.
Chapter 7. Organized Planning, Turning Desire into Action. This chapter explains that a person's desire remains only a thought until it is properly planned and transformed into action. The focus here is on how to clarify desire and bring it into real life through a step-by-step plan. The chapter explains that most people want many things, but their desires are scattered. Their minds are filled with multiple ideas, yet there is no clear direction. Organized planning means giving structure and shape to this scattered desire. The first essential step is to clearly understand what one truly wants. When desire is unclear, action also becomes weak. Next comes planning. Here, planning does not mean a heavy or complex system. It simply means deciding what should be done first, what comes next, and how to move from one step to another. The chapter explains that the simpler and clearer the plan, the easier it is to follow. Effort without a plan often leads to exhaustion rather than results. The chapter also highlights that the gap between desire and action is the biggest challenge. Many people wait for motivation to appear before they begin working. In reality, clarity and confidence come only after action is taken. Organized planning helps bridge this gap by breaking desire into small, manageable tasks, reducing fear and confusion. This concept is important because without a plan, people tend to keep changing direction, doing one thing today and something else tomorrow. This leads to wasted energy. When a plan exists, the mind knows exactly what needs to be done each day. This increases focus and reduces distraction. Gradually, desire turns into a concrete goal. A common misconception is that planning means everything must be perfect in advance. This chapter clarifies that planning can be flexible. Changes may occur along the way, but the direction remains the same. Consistency is more important than perfection. In real life, this concept applies everywhere.
whether in career, business, or personal goals. When a person writes down their desire, thinks it through, and arranges it in order, they naturally become more serious about it. Small daily actions eventually lead to significant results. The core message of this chapter is that desire alone does nothing. It needs the support of a proper plan. Organized planning gives direction to desire and strength to action. When thinking is clear and steps are defined, a person moves steadily and confidently closer to their goal. Chapter 8. Decision: The Art of Overcoming Procrastination. This chapter explores what truly holds people back from moving forward in life. The answer is often not laziness, but fear. Fear of making the wrong decision, fear of failure, and fear of others' opinions. This fear traps a person in endless thinking and keeps them away from action. The chapter focuses on the difference between successful and unsuccessful people, not in how much they think, but in how quickly they make decisions. Most people spend their lives planning, but delay making decisions. They wait for the perfect time, perfect conditions, and complete clarity. The truth is that complete clarity never arrives. Those who move ahead make decisions even with incomplete information and remain committed to them. It explains that procrastination is actually a habit. A person knows what needs to be done, yet postpones it from today to tomorrow. Over time, this habit weakens self-confidence. Every time a decision is delayed, a person unconsciously teaches themselves that they cannot trust their own word. It also explains that people with a limited mindset take a long time to make decisions, while people with a growth-oriented mindset make decisions quickly and change them slowly. This does not mean they never make wrong decisions. It means they value progress more than standing still. A common misunderstanding is that everything must be perfect before making a decision. This chapter clarifies that confidence is created by making decisions, not the other way around. Those who never take the first step never truly learn. In real life, this is clearly visible. Many people want to change jobs, but spend years thinking about it. Some want to start a business, but hesitate due to fear of risk. Others are unhappy in relationships, but lack the courage to make decisions. In every case, the problem is the same: indecision. This chapter also teaches that decision-making is a skill that improves with practice. Learning to make small decisions quickly, related to daily routines, time management, spending habits, or health, makes larger decisions easier over time. As decision-making becomes stronger, thinking also becomes stronger. It is also explained that procrastination is often born from fear, but fear is reduced not by thinking, but by action. The moment a person takes even a small step, fear begins to weaken. The mind receives the signal that situations can be handled. Another important point made here is that repeatedly changing decisions is also a form of procrastination. Some people make a decision but withdraw as soon as they face difficulty. Successful people do not do this. After making a decision, they give it time, face challenges, and stay committed to the chosen path. In conclusion, the chapter calmly explains that life offers opportunities only to those who have the courage to make decisions. Even a wrong decision is better than no decision because it leads to learning. Without decisions, a person remains in the same place. The key lesson of this chapter is that overcoming procrastination begins with making a clear decision. When a person decides that action is more important than endless thinking, real change begins. Decisions define direction, and direction ultimately shapes results.
Chapter 9. Persistence: The Sustained Effort Required to Build Faith. This chapter explains that belief is not built merely by thinking, but by consistent effort in the same direction over time. Faith grows gradually through persistence. The chapter focuses on what persistence truly means and how it connects with faith. Persistence does not simply mean working hard, it means repeatedly applying effort toward a fixed goal without stopping. When a person consistently thinks about something, works on it, and moves in the same direction, the mind gradually begins to accept that idea as reality. This state eventually becomes faith. An important point clarified here is that faith does not appear suddenly. Many people believe confidence or belief develops overnight, but this is not true. Faith is a process. When a person repeatedly reinforces an idea in their mind and acts accordingly, that idea settles deeply within them. Persistence is the most critical part of this process. The chapter also explains why most people give up midway. In the beginning, enthusiasm is high, but when results do not appear immediately, people abandon their efforts. This is the biggest mistake. True persistence means continuing to work even when no clear results are visible. Faith is built precisely during these uncertain moments when a person refuses to step back. Another misconception is that persistence means forcing oneself aggressively. In reality, it means moving forward calmly, consistently, and with a clear direction. There is no rush and no need to do something new every day. Even small, repeated actions, when taken daily, create a deep impact. In real life, the effect of persistence is clearly visible. Whether someone is learning a skill, building a business, or trying to change a habit, persistence is the most important factor. In the beginning, the mind may not believe, but with daily effort, it gradually starts accepting the idea. This acceptance marks the beginning of faith. The chapter also explains that persistence cannot work without clarity. If a person does not know what they want, even consistent effort becomes scattered. When the goal is clear and direction is defined, persistence produces results and faith grows stronger. In conclusion, faith is not magic. It is the natural outcome of persistence. Continuous thinking, continuous effort, and continuous movement in the same direction create a process through which inner belief slowly becomes strong. When a person understands this, they begin focusing more on the process than on immediate results, and this is where real transformation begins. Chapter 10: The Power of the Mastermind. This chapter explores what the mastermind is, how it works, and how it becomes a powerful driving force in a person's life. It clearly explains that working hard alone is not enough. Combining the right thinking with the right people creates a significant difference. The chapter emphasizes that a mastermind is essentially a group mind. When two or more people work together toward a common goal with mutual trust and harmony, their collective thinking begins to operate at a higher level. It is not merely about individuals giving their best separately, rather their combined thinking creates a new energy. Through this process, ideas become clearer, decisions improve, and individual weaknesses are naturally balanced. It is also explained that a mastermind is not limited to meetings or discussions. It is a mental alliance where people sincerely listen to one another, support each other, and move in the same direction. When individuals bring different experiences, knowledge, and skills together, solutions to problems emerge more quickly. What one person may not be able to see alone often becomes clear within a group. The chapter further clarifies that most successful people did not move forward alone. Behind them, there was always some form of a mastermind group: business partners, advisors, mentors, or people who asked the right questions at the right time. These individuals do not simply agree blindly, they speak honestly when needed. This honest feedback accelerates growth. A common misconception is that a mastermind means associating only with powerful or wealthy people. This chapter explains that the foundation of a mastermind is not money or status, but mindset and commitment. If the thinking is negative or there is a lack of trust among members, such a group can become harmful instead of helpful. Therefore, choosing the right people is essential. It is also emphasized that a mastermind works only when there is no jealousy, unhealthy competition, or ego within the group. The moment someone considers themselves superior or looks down on others, the collective energy weakens.
This is why harmony is given the highest importance. When people genuinely celebrate each other's success, the power of the group multiplies. Applying this concept in real life is not difficult. A strong team at the workplace, goal-oriented discussions with friends, or planning with a trustworthy business partner are all forms of a mastermind. Even a single person who challenges your limiting beliefs and forces you to think differently can be part of your mastermind. The chapter also teaches that trying to control everything alone often slows growth. Asking for help is not a weakness, it is a sign of wisdom. When a person connects with the right people, confidence increases and fear decreases because they know they are not alone. In conclusion, the chapter calmly explains that the mastermind is not magic, but a disciplined approach. When the right people work together with the right intentions over time, this power gradually develops. When a person trusts this process, clear improvements can be seen in their thinking, decisions, and results. The core lesson of this chapter is that thinking together is far more powerful than thinking alone.
Chapter 11. The Mystery of Sex Transmutation. This chapter explains how the most powerful energy within a human being can be directed effectively, and how that same energy fuels thinking, action, and creativity. The chapter is essentially about the transfer of energy. Here, sex is not viewed merely as a physical act, but as a mental and emotional energy. The author explains that this energy is extremely strong, and if left uncontrolled, it can become a source of distraction. However, when used wisely and directed toward meaningful work, it can produce remarkable results. The core idea is that every human being possesses a natural drive that pushes them to achieve, create, and move forward. While this drive may appear physical on the surface, its true source lies in the mind and emotions. When a person redirects this energy from purely physical expression into goals, thinking, and skill development, it is called transmutation. The energy remains the same, only its usage changes. This concept is important because most people do not understand their own energy. They either suppress it or waste it in unproductive ways. The chapter clarifies that suppressing energy is not healthy, but allowing it to flow without direction can also be harmful. The correct approach is to convert this energy into productive activities such as learning, planning, creative thinking, or focusing on meaningful goals. A common misunderstanding is that sex transmutation means self-denial or forceful control. This is not the case. The chapter emphasizes understanding natural feelings and directing them appropriately. It also acknowledges that there is no single method suitable for everyone. Each person's energy, mindset, and needs are different, and therefore its application will vary. In real life, the meaning is very simple. When a person feels a surge of energy, they may experience restlessness or loss of focus. If that same energy is directed toward constructive work, such as developing a new idea, improving a skill, or planning a goal, the restlessness becomes productive. This is why many successful individuals appear highly active, creative, and disciplined. The chapter also explains that strong emotions do not weaken a person. When understood correctly, they can become a person's greatest strength. The key is recognizing the energy within and channeling it in the right direction. In conclusion, the chapter offers a calm insight that personal growth does not depend only on external resources, but on the proper use of internal energy. When a person learns to transform their most powerful energy into focused thinking and purposeful action, growth becomes natural and stable. Chapter 12. The Subconscious Mind, the Connecting Link. This chapter explains how the subconscious mind acts as a connecting link between a person's thoughts and their real-life results. It clarifies that everything a person experiences externally is deeply connected to the thoughts and emotions operating within. The chapter explains that although the subconscious mind is not directly under conscious control, it is the most powerful part of the mind. The conscious mind thinks,
plans, and makes decisions, but the subconscious mind accepts those thoughts and converts them into habits, behaviors, and actions. Thoughts that are repeatedly reinforced gradually settle into the subconscious. It is also explained that the subconscious mind does not distinguish between positive and negative thoughts. Whatever thoughts a person consistently holds with emotion are accepted as truth. If someone repeatedly believes they are weak, unlucky, or destined to fail, those thoughts gradually begin to reflect in real life. Conversely, when thoughts are clear, focused, and positive, actions and results align accordingly. The chapter further explains that faith, belief, and emotion form the pathway to the subconscious mind. Thinking alone is not enough unless it is accompanied by feeling. When a person becomes emotionally involved with a goal, the thought reaches the subconscious at a much deeper level. A common misconception addressed here is the belief that positive thinking alone will automatically change everything. This chapter clarifies that positive thoughts must be repeated consistently and reinforced through action. The subconscious mind is programmed gradually, not overnight. Just as negative habits develop over time, constructive thinking also requires time to take root. This chapter is highly practical in real life. For individuals who feel stuck in their careers, especially between the ages of 25 and 35, and who struggle with confusion, self-doubt, or fear, understanding their inner dialogue is essential. A person who repeatedly tells themselves, "I don't have time," or "I can't do better than this," unknowingly blocks their own progress. It is also explained that autosuggestion can be used to guide the subconscious mind in the right direction. This involves consciously feeding clear and positive thoughts into the mind, especially when it is relaxed. Over time, these thoughts become firmly embedded. In conclusion, the chapter explains that the outer world is an extension of the inner world. Until thoughts and beliefs change internally, results cannot change externally. The subconscious mind is not magic. It is a system that produces output based on the input it receives. The core lesson of this chapter is that if one wants to change their life, they must first change their thinking. Decisions made by the conscious mind must be consistently reinforced in the subconscious. When this connection is established, actions become easier and results begin to appear naturally.
Chapter 13. The Brain, a broadcasting and receiving station for thought. This chapter explores how the brain sends and receives thoughts, and how a person's thinking ultimately shapes the direction of their entire life. The focus here is on understanding that the brain is not merely a place for thinking, but a central station from which thoughts are transmitted outward and received from the surrounding environment. The chapter first clarifies that a thought is not something light or insignificant. A thought functions like energy. Just as radio stations broadcast signals and other radios receive them, the human brain also broadcasts thoughts and receives surrounding influences. Whatever a person thinks repeatedly becomes the foundation of their habits, decisions, and actions. It is explained that the brain itself is not inherently creative. It primarily receives and repeats inputs. Whatever is fed into the mind becomes the output. If the brain is supplied with negative thoughts, fear, doubt, and confusion, those same patterns begin to dominate thinking. On the other hand, when the mind is fed clear, positive, and focused thoughts, thinking naturally begins to move in that direction. An important point emphasized in this chapter is that thoughts do not appear randomly. Every thought has a source. Some thoughts come from the external environment, such as conversations, news, social influences, and past conditioning. Others originate internally from patterns already stored in the mind. Often, people fail to recognize which thoughts are truly their own and which they have simply absorbed from elsewhere. This idea is important because people often place responsibility for their lives on external factors. They blame circumstances, other people, or fate. This chapter explains that real control exists at the level of thought.
The thoughts that run repeatedly in the mind ultimately shape a person's reality. A common misconception is that the brain is only a physical organ and thoughts remain confined inside it. This chapter explains that thoughts influence behavior, the body, and decision-making. Over time, thoughts turn into habits. Habits shape character, and character produces results. In practical terms, this means that a person must become aware of the thoughts they allow into their mind, what kind of information they consume, what patterns of thinking they repeat, and which ideas they give space to. The frequency on which the mind is set determines what becomes most visible and influential in life. Overall, the message of this chapter is that the brain functions like a powerful station. Whatever it broadcasts returns in the form of life experiences. Learning to understand, identify, and direct thoughts gradually makes a person more aware and balanced. This understanding reveals the deep connection between one's thinking and one's life. Chapter 14, The Sixth Sense, the Door to the Temple of Wisdom. This chapter explores the idea that human beings possess a level of understanding that goes beyond logic, planning, and ordinary thinking. It offers insight into how consistent right thinking, disciplined habits, and a positive mindset gradually develop a deep inner guidance, which the author refers to as the sixth sense. The chapter focuses on how, when a person works towards their goals for a long period, trains their mind, and avoids negative thinking, a different kind of understanding begins to emerge. This is not magic or supernatural power, but the result of experience, focus, and subconscious development. Often, a person suddenly understands the right decision without extensive analysis or feels an inner clarity about a situation. This stage is what the chapter describes as the sixth sense. It is clearly explained that the sixth sense does not appear suddenly. It develops when a person sincerely follows all the earlier steps. When an individual maintains clear desire, builds faith, takes consistent action, and feeds the mind with positive input, the subconscious mind becomes active. Through this subconscious activity, deeper understanding begins to function. Many people misunderstand the sixth sense as a mysterious voice or random intuition. However, the chapter gently explains that it is actually the distilled result of experience and disciplined thinking. When a person works in a field for a long time, the brain begins recognizing patterns. Things that were previously unclear start becoming obvious. This concept is important because some people rely only on logic and ignore inner signals, while others rely only on feelings without thinking. This chapter teaches balance. After logic, planning, and effort, the inner guidance that emerges is far more reliable. In real life, this means that when a person continuously learns and improves in their career, business, or decision-making, they eventually begin recognizing the right opportunities naturally. People often say someone has a habit of making the right decision at the right time. In reality, this is not a habit, but a trained mind. Another common misconception is that the sixth sense belongs only to a few special individuals. This chapter clearly indicates that it exists within everyone. The difference is that most people fill their minds with so much noise that they no longer hear their inner guidance. When fear, doubt, and negative thinking are reduced, the mind becomes clearer. In this clarity, deeper understanding begins to operate. This is why the chapter also emphasizes reducing fear and strengthening self-trust. In conclusion, the chapter explains that the sixth sense is not a starting point but a result. It emerges when a person consistently walks in the right direction. When thinking becomes clear, decisions grow stronger, and the mind remains balanced, understanding begins to arise naturally. The core lesson of this chapter is that wisdom does not come from outside, it is developed within. When this understanding is established, a person feels calmer, clearer, and more confident in their decisions. This is the doorway referred to as the Temple of Wisdom. Chapter 15. How to Outwit the 6 Ghosts of Fear. This chapter explores how fear gradually weakens a person's ability to think clearly and make decisions, and identifies the hidden fears that silently control the mind. Fear is not treated as an emotional drama, but as a practical problem that can be understood and managed. The main focus of the chapter is on 6 types of fear, which the author calls ghosts because they are rarely visible yet deeply influential. These fears are the fear of poverty, fear of criticism, fear of illness, fear of losing love, fear of old age, and fear of death. The chapter examines not just their names, but how these fears settle into the mind and begin controlling behavior. The fear of poverty is not only about lack of money, it prevents people from taking risks and forces them to always play safe. The fear of criticism makes people dependent on others' opinions, valuing approval more than their own judgment. The fear of illness traps the mind in negative thinking and magnifies even minor concerns. The fear of losing love can create emotional dependency where relationships are driven by fear rather than health. The fear of old age prevents people from living fully in the present, while the fear of death often creates unnecessary anxiety. These fears rarely strengthen through logic, instead they grow through habit and repeated thinking. The chapter also explains why fear often feels necessary. A part of the mind seeks safety, and fear becomes part of that protection system. However, when fear exceeds its purpose, it turns from protection into limitation. This is where most people make mistakes, by accepting fear as natural without questioning whether it is truly justified. A common misunderstanding is the belief that fear can be completely eliminated. The chapter clarifies that fear does not need to be destroyed, but controlled. Once a person identifies a fear and understands its source, they gain power over it. In real life, this understanding is extremely useful. When fear arises before starting something new, one can identify which fear is active: fear of poverty or fear of judgment. This clarity leads to cleaner and more practical decisions. In conclusion, the chapter presents a calm insight. Fear does not need to be treated as an enemy. It needs to be understood and placed in its proper position. When fear is observed from a distance, people begin making decisions for themselves rather than following fear's signals. This understanding is the true essence of the chapter.